All right, it's time for your stimulus update now. And what in the world is going on with Congress, the debt ceiling, and the Build Back Better program as we head into the end of the year? So a couple of big stories emerging over the past 24 hours. Particularly, the members of Congress sat down and grilled Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell, more Janet Yellen than they did Jerome Powell, to clarify different positions on inflation, supply chain, stimulus, a whole host of things. And then we'll get to what Congress is planning to do on the stimulus vote in just a minute. But Janet Yellen made a pretty stark warning to Congress, saying, you guys have only a few days left to get this debt ceiling thing figured out, because we are up against a wall on December 15th. You better make a move to expand the debt ceiling or we are screwed.
Let me clarify what I said. What I indicated in my most recent letter to Congress is that I have a high degree of confidence the Treasury will be able to finance the U.S. government through December 15th. But there would be scenarios in which Treasury would not have sufficient funds to continue to finance the operations of the U.S. government beyond that date. I would note that on December 15th, Treasury will invest funds from the infrastructure bill, and that will use up $118 billion worth of capacity when those funds are from the Highway Trust Fund are invested in government securities.
So basically, you know that infrastructure bill that we passed, right? Well, that's about to be funded on December 15th, and that money is going to come out of the Treasury, but we also have to pay the bills that President Trump and Republicans had already committed to last year, in the last calendar year when President Trump was president of the United States. These bills are coming due, and Congress, you need to lift this debt ceiling because we're not going to be able to pay for it all. Mm-hmm. And we are headed for an economic disaster if we can't do that. Or maybe we just don't even use any of the funds for the infrastructure stimulus program, so our roads in the United States will continue to be crumbled.
I mean, she's been saying this since August, September. Like, please, you guys, please give us some kind of permanent solution. But she has not got anywhere close to receiving it. Meanwhile, Fed Chief Jerome Powell is saying that he is ready to stop the stimulus into the economy.
Yes.
Meeting just last hour.
At this point, the economy is very strong and inflationary pressures are high, and it is therefore appropriate, in my view, to consider wrapping up the taper of our asset purchases, which we actually announced at the November meeting, perhaps a few months sooner. And I expect that we will discuss that at our upcoming meeting in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Okay, so what does this mean? This means that the government has been investing in things that were less than stellar types of investments.
Yeah, that's a nice way to say it.
In order to keep those things from imploding and sort of letting the bottom fall out of our economy, right?
Right.
To the tune of, I didn't realize the number was so high until I saw him speak together. Some economists are saying the Fed could double its reduction to $30 billion a month. So wait, the Federal Reserve is buying up bad investments to the tune of $30 billion a month.
Right.
But we probably can't. So we're going to keep doing that, but we can't afford the debts that we have, one, already agreed to and have taken on. And this makes no sense. It implodes my mind.
Yes.
To think, how can you run a budget that way?
Exactly. I mean,
this sounds like exactly what happened in 2008.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it is exactly what was happening in 2008. I mean, different shades a little bit, but most of, buying up corporate junk bonds that corporations do not want because they are junk, right?
Yes.
Oh, well, hey, we the taxpayers will buy them. We the federal government will buy up your crappy.
We like junk.
We like your mortgage-backed securities, which I thought were not allowed to happen anymore. Like, you're not allowed to take all these crappy mortgages that people aren't going to pay and bundle them together with a nice little bow. And so all these mortgages that are like these mortgage-backed bonds that, wait a minute, you mean there are people in here in this package that are actually foreclosing on their homes and they can't pay their mortgages? Just watch the movie The Big Short. It's exactly what's happening all over again. And we're still funneling money to Wall Street.
Or watch the movie Dave when he actually balances the budget with a small businessman.
Yeah. Or watch the movie The Lorax. I don't know why, but just watch that. If you're watching movies, just throw that into the mix. It's a good movie. But these guys are, these are the guys that are running our economy, right?
Yes.
We have a dollar that is collapsing. We have $29 trillion in debt. And now Powell says, we will discuss speeding up bond buying at this December meeting. We're going to basically admitting that we were wrong. Now, one of the things that emerged from this meeting yesterday, when asked about it, he said, well, we think instead of saying inflation is just going to be temporary, where it would last a few months, now he says he'll see it all the way through 2022.
Oh, now the new word is transitionary. It's not temporary. It's transitionary, which means it's kind of like it's like puberty.
It's transitioning
like
us
we're
into a
going
better
through
day.
puberty. It's like
It's
part of the
it's
growing
darkness
up process.
transitioning to light.
Right. It's just transitionary. It's not temporary.
It's necessary to become a big boy. You have to go through it.
And meanwhile, you wonder why people are putting so much money right now into things like Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies and alternative asset classes. And your people are buying up art and they're buying up, they're buying Ethereum. We saw it's because they don't trust Wall Street. They don't trust that these guys are all tied to this stuff. They're all part of this. They're all part of the same thing. He said at this point, the economy is very strong and inflationary pressures are higher. And it is therefore appropriate, in my view, to consider wrapping up the taper of our asset purchases, which we announced at the November meeting, perhaps a few months sooner.
Okay, if he said the economy is very strong right now, but so we don't need to raise interest rates and we'll slowly stop buying up the junk off the floor, then why is the FTC launching this investigation into retailers for what they say is slowing the recovery, right? We talked about this story yesterday where the FTC says all of a sudden, hey, we'd like some documents about how the supply chain was slowed up by Walmart or Amazon or whoever,
Right.
Because it was slowing the economy, which is what we needed, is this recovery. But then Fed Chief Jerome Powell says the economy is very strong. We don't need to make moves. So which is it?
Right. What is it to you out there who's watching right now? You're paying for gas, right? You're seeing the price of gas going up. You're seeing, all you need to do is read a great piece in Seeking Alpha about why inflation is a runaway freight train right now. And it's the stuff specifically, as we talked about on the show yesterday, the biggest expenses for you, the healthcare, the food items, the gasoline, the education costs, all of those things, we're just seeing continued price increases, right? It's the stuff that hits your family the hardest. The rent, mortgage prices, et cetera. But when it comes to buying a TV, that's $100 cheaper, right? So where are our priorities? And again, this is happening to people. You're noticing that you're paying more for less stuff.
The government could conceivably shut down, and then what will that do to inflation, right? This is a scary precipice that we're on right now.
Yeah, it is. And this is a huge problem for the Federal Reserve. On the one hand, they have to decide whether or not they think the economy is burning and churning enough that they can pull back and take care. Literally, this is the battle that's about to emerge right now. It's between you and Wall Street. So on the one hand, they have to say to themselves, okay, is inflation running too hot so prices are going up and people are being crunched, okay? And is the market over here stable enough for us to pull back on these corporate bond purchases? So now they're weighing these two things, raising interest rates, pulling back on Wall Street. Who do you think is going to win between you and Wall Street? That's what they're in, the most biggest predicament. I saw Dominic Chu on CNBC. He said this is perhaps the biggest predicament they've ever been in. This choice. I don't think it's a predicament for them at all. You know who they're going to choose. They're going to side with Wall
if history's
Street.
going to repeat itself, exactly. During this whole pandemic, Wall Street has flourished and the people have paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not that far out from the last government shutdown in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
At this rate, it happens every few years, and this is unacceptable that it continues to happen without any long-term fix.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the stimulus front, what's going on with the Build Back Better plan? Because, okay, we've got tapering, we've got inflationary concerns, we've got the debt ceiling, And we also have the Build Back Better plan. Well, Chuck Schumer says that he sees a December 13th vote on the Build Back Better plan. He plans to bring it to the Senate floor then. He says as soon as the necessary technical and procedural work of the Senate parliamentarian has been completed, the Senate will take up this legislation. Once that's complete, we are ready to move the Build Back Better plan to the floor. Questions, though, as to whether or not they think they can get this done before Christmas. We expect to see action before Christmas. This is a positive sign.
I'm just going to let him know that he needs to clear his calendar for that week for the budget meetings,
Right.
like for the negotiations about raising the debt ceiling. I don't know why he doesn't see that on his calendar, but I'll go in and block it out.
Yeah, because Janet Yellen is still sitting there saying, wait a second, like I've been telling you about this.
His assistant's probably like, I need access to
Like-
your calendar. That's why I asked Clayton, I'm like, you need to give me access not to invite you to things, but to put things there. That's why this is the thing. If you're married to someone and you have shared calendars, you need to get access to actually put things on their calendars and not invite them. Because if you invite them, they can ignore it or
Don't do
say
this.
no, and
She
then you'll
needs-
get mad. So
Janet Yellen needs to have
this
access.
is the key to a successful partnership is the ability to actually just put things on people's calendars.
Put things on people. She needs
I
access.
think-
Like Janet Yellen needs access to their calendars.
She needs to be like, look, you're done with anything you're doing until this debt ceiling issue is taken care of. You're
Right.
not going anywhere. No Christmas
think we need
parties
to-
for you, Chuck Schumer.
Chuck Schumer. I think what we need to do is that every politician in every news segment like this that we watch, we need to put it through a filter that just goes wah 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 wah
Yeah.
wah wah, because we would get more out of that than we get out of what they actually
Totally.
say.
Yeah. Like, do they think they're actually going to get this stuff through Congress? Anyway, so finally on this stimulus front here, the Build Back Better plan, which is expected to be about $2 trillion. It would have the child tax credit checks in there. It would have $3,600 checks to families. It would have a number of things in there for transportation, elder care, et cetera. The question, though, still remains is Joe Manchin going to support this? Is Kirsten Sinema going to support this?
We got to bring those dudes back into this. We had a reprieve from them for about 2 or 3
Does
weeks.
it help the people? Then no. Like, you know,
Right.
you remember like what was it, a year and a half, 2 years ago? Anytime I would say you guys aren't going to, people are like, Dave, don't be such a cynic, man. You're such a cynic. And it's like, now nobody tells me that anymore because we've been saying this for well over a year. They
Yeah.
don't want to help us. It's obvious.
Well, I mean, there might be a silver lining here. I don't know, but we still don't have an answer on this guy, specifically on Manchin. He apparently discussed with Schumer. They were talking about climate and energy issues. So you know that he is going to get in his dirty coal legislation. He's going to make sure that West Virginia coal miners and that his pockets are lined nicely with coal and dirty energy provisions. We know that that's going to happen. So he admitted that he's been talking to Chuck Schumer about that and that he's had concerns about the climate in the bad way, right? Like he's not pushing for us to do more for like
He's
solar and
concerned
wind.
that we'll stop raping the earth. And he wants that to continue.
He wants that to continue. Exactly.
We
Yeah.
need to keep raping mountains in West Virginia, please.
And no one knows where
I'm
Kirsten
proud to
Sinema.
be a coal miner, Senator.
Yeah, where he continues to make as much money as he can from those industries. As Derek Eade says, Manchin is the biggest D of them all. Exactly. So there you go. I mean, we'll find out. December 13th is a Senate vote, potentially, on the stimulus package. We'll see. And then, as Natalie points out, there's still a massive mountain to climb as far as the debt ceiling. So good luck for that.